Us. Welcome to Event Sustainability Live. Great to see so many people here. Event sponsored by Evolution Dome. You join us on the GL event stage. My name's Craig. I'll be hosting the stage today, so I hope to see a few of you as the day goes on. Just a couple of bits of housekeeping. There's a screen on either side of me. To my left-hand side, there is a screen showing Slido, which is our platform for taking questions during each of the panel sessions that are running today. That will be the same login details and the same scan for every session that's on this stage. So recommend you just scanning that. If you have any questions as we go through, please feel free to stick them up on there. On my right-hand side, on your left, there is a screen showing closed captioning from Interprify. That will be available throughout the show on every stage as well. It's an absolute joy to be joined by Anna from ISLA and Adam from Event Sustainability Live, Event Industry News, Event Tech Live, and all of the above things to have a chat about today, have a chat about the show. So with no further ado, I'll hand over to Anna and Adam.
Thank you. Are these on? Does this work? How does this? Yes. Is it in headphones? I think you have to. Yeah. Hello, can you hear me now? I'm not sure why he got one of those mics that comes out the speakers.
We can't hear ourselves back though.
Can everyone hear okay? Great. Lovely to be joining you this morning. Thank you so much for coming. When I said to Adam, I actually think it'd be really great to interview you, he said, no one's going to want to hear from me. And no, I'm teasing. Yes, when we were talking about kind of what do we want to talk about, what is it, what's the opportunity available, the discussion, one of the things that came up was that Adam himself is the brains behind Event Sustainability Live, has been working in events in the industry, across Events Industry News, running the podcast, released the Sustainable Event Buyer's Guide, obviously Event Tech Live, which is on the other side, if you do have an opportunity to see the other show today as well. And I felt that actually Adam's a bit of an unsung hero of the industry, although he would completely disagree. He's got buckets of integrity, buckets of experience, you know, and has a lot of goodwill in the industry. And I thought what would be really great was fundamentally to understand why is it that he's wanted to launch a show on sustainability for the events industry. So before we kind of get into the detail around that and the experience of launching a sustainability show and all the learnings, just wanted to give Adam a little bit of an opportunity to talk about how he came to this place. Where did the driver for sustainability come from? Like, what's coming out of the industry? What's he seen? Like, what are the personal motivations? And go from there.
Okay, so if I talk about my first kind of foray into the events industry, predominantly when I started working in events, it was for a B2B publication that predominantly focused on the festival market. And that's when I first got introduced to anything to do with sustainability around events, because festivals seem to be on that leading or bleeding edge when it came to infrastructure, power, their approach. They're obviously going into greenfield sites, so there's a lot of consideration there for, you know, agriculture, the, you know, wildlife, the population around the communities and things like that, and their impact and what they leave behind from their events and festivals. And obviously then that trickles to the attendees that come to those events and how they approach the event and how they communicate and educate them on there. We've got Chris from Shambhala Festival speaking today, and he's also been one of those that have kind of, you know, taught me or introduced me to different ways of thinking about the events. So that was our kind of like our first introduction to it. When we launched Event Industry News, we again took a look at this in terms of a keen topic in the industry and started to interview lots of different people, association, bodies, individuals that were doing sustainable things or having sustainable ideas and approaches to their events. And that's just gradually grown and grown and grown. But I would say that's definitely influenced myself and our approach when we launched Event Tech Live 10 years ago. Our kind of mantra was, why do we need this? And is there a better way or a lower impact way to do things? And that kind of trickled down to logistics and trucking into the venue, what we were using on site. We actually used a number of festival suppliers to help us with power management and distribution and things like that. The other thing is I'm Yorkshire. So inherently, if I can spend less money and do things in a more efficient way, that's brilliant. So
I love that. I don't know if you saw, but I was like, come and listen to his smooth northern tones first thing this morning. I love that. So really what you have seen is a shift in the corporate side over time,
Absolutely.
but you've been able to observe that because you come from this festival background where there's been a lot more pace over the last decade or so. And I think there's a big thing about kind of festivals that they are entirely run, owned and operated as kind of a single entity, as opposed to a more corporate space where you don't have a venue necessarily and you have a different supply chain, you've got your exhibitors, etc. So sustainability has really been kind of baked into your approach to how you engage with your audiences, how you develop your shows and proposals for a long time.
Yeah, and in all honesty, I wouldn't have, if you'd have asked me 5 years ago, 6 years ago, 7 years ago, I wouldn't have put ourselves out there as we are a sustainable company, we are a sustainable event organiser. I would have definitely been able to pick certain things out that I thought was a sustainable approach. As you probably noticed, there's no carpets to the show floor. That's chalk and cheese for people, especially in exhibitions. And to be honest with you, there are sustainable carpet options, so that's another way to approach it. So I'd have been able to do that, but I wouldn't have said we are a company that is a sustainable approach company. I think we're definitely moving in a way, and certainly now with ESL added to that, again, the learning curve has been massive for us, working with yourselves, with Trace, with other elements, with suppliers, with logistics. Learning from the other companies that are participating and supporting the show has also been a big part of that. There's going to be a lot of change and a lot of improvement and things that I see as being able to include in the event next year as well.
That'll be interesting to come on to about what you see that as. But I think because one of the things that we've been talking about, you're saying you've had an opportunity to learn a load from the people that are coming and exhibiting at the space and the conversations and suppliers conversations you've been having with suppliers and exhibitors. And I think one of those things that I found really interesting that you mentioned was that there are loads of organisations out there like yours that are taking like that progressive step, that are iterating in their sustainability journey, because it's not an overnight change. It just doesn't work like that.
No.
But people seem to be really reluctant to talk about the changes that they are making. And I'd be really interested for you to just give a little bit of insight into how your team have experienced people's, I mean, maybe it's a very British characteristic, but very like modesty and really kind of withdrawing when you start talking about this.
Yeah, I think we've all probably seen, and we've published and other publications have published a lot of news and information, especially over the last couple of years coming out of the pandemic, about what different agencies and individuals, supply chain are all doing, whether that's from themselves as a product and service provider and the solutions that they provide, or whether that's even trickling down to how they are setting their business up. How they're using solar to charge batteries to power things on site and things like that. But and this was the biggest shock to us, and Anna's absolutely right, people are still fairly, I'm trying to choose the right words here, I guess apprehensive of putting themselves in an event like this and having those very maybe analytical conversations and putting themselves there. There are so many companies I believe should be here and are in a really, really good place, but maybe it's they don't want to necessarily be compared or, dare I say, judged or something like that. And that was the biggest learning curve for us. So actually, a lot of my team kind of tended to turn to being more of the reassurance and saying, kind of taking examples from ourselves and saying, we're on our own journey as well, but you've got to take that first step and you've got to be involved in the industry and support the industry and put what you're doing out there, and then next year you'll be in a totally different place.
Yeah, I think there's a thing about events professionals. We've made a rod for our own back in many ways by being so capable and so competent, and I think everybody understands that about events, is we are get things done people. Give us a problem, we figure it out, with really tight time frames, really tight budgets, and we are experts. That's why, clients come, whether that's an agency coming to a supplier, whether it's a brand coming to an agency, etc. We are the experts at this, and we are very confident. In the UK, we have a world-renowned industry, very, very high-performing, high-profile. And so to have something that we don't really know very well, don't know how to talk about it, don't necessarily know is option A or option B the right decision to make, I think that's quite unnerving for a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
But without that dialogue, without seeing things and without the conversation, no one can learn. You know, humans learn by, it's how we learn as kids, right? You learn by copying, by repeating, by trying over and over and over and over again to do this one thing. And if you've not got anything to look at, if you've not got anything to engage with, if you're not seeing those examples out there, how do you do that? So,
and I think that's our approach, and what possibly makes Event Sustainability Live, or what will make Event Sustainability Live different going forward, is we've got some amazing events out there, the meeting show, you know, others, Confex, things like that. And what they do is they focus in on a certain sector or a certain type of plan or a certain type of event, and try and really focus in on supporting the conversation maybe around sustainability on those specific events. We've also got associations like the AEV, the AEO, ESA, again, generally serving a very specific part of the market. And it's the approach that Event Industry News has taken is, what we see here is a cross-opportunity learning between festivals, corporates, the trade show market and others, because our belief is ultimately events are very similar in the way that they are produced, but we all do approach things in a very slightly different way. And the more we learn about what the trade show market is doing with the Better Stands initiative, for example, that could then be adopted to festivals. Festivals will be doing things that can be adopted to trade shows and corporate events and things like that. So we hope for this platform, this will create is a bigger opportunity to learn together and take from that and add things to what our own approach is, so that we can, again, iterate on what we're already doing.
Yeah, I mean, it's that radical cross-sector collaboration which the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change calls for, which is really about how do we work together, because it's about collective impact, means you'll move forward faster and more effectively than trying to figure things out by yourself. And I think it's that collective impact piece. So what have you learned about sustainability that you didn't know before, and from putting this show on, that you want to express to people here?
I feel everybody's pain is extremely hard. It's an extremely big learning curve. And if I'm honest, you know, I think I saw other companies, and maybe my idea of this approach was that some companies have got the luxury of having dedicated people that approach sustainability and kind of look at it from a business level and event level, and then can work with the individual teams and things like that. So it kind of, the ideal is that it's one person's directive and they drive it right through the business. We've not got that luxury as a small team. It's an absolute team effort, and I think you have to create a culture of everybody buying into that. That then feeds back through the event, through their kind of thought process and their approach on their part of the event. So even from the marketing team, you know, the marketing team really don't have an impact element to it, but it has changed the way that they've been thinking about what are we communicating, when are we communicating it, how are we communicating it, what's our message. And some of that has kind of trickled down to the show floor in terms of us trying to have elements of the show floor where it's telling our story about our approach to it as well. Because I do believe that people, obviously, as event professionals, we go to other events, right, to learn as well. So we've kind of tried to look at that. So for me, that's the biggest change mindset is, honestly, before doing this ourselves and not starting our journey today with ESL, but even before, I thought, the ideal situation is just puts one person in charge of it as a responsibility, but my belief has totally changed on that.
That's really interesting, and I love that, because it does often come down to it that someone in an organisation is responsible or becomes responsible, but they're not necessarily given the mandate to drive that across the business in exactly as you're saying, in terms of how other team members have to participate in that. You know, when you talk the marketing team, for example, their mandate is marketing, but actually they need to know what's happening in the rest of the business. They need to encourage people to bring that information to them. They need to go out and ask the questions. They kind of put it on people's minds to think about the opportunities to communicate certain things in line with the marketing strategy, and it's exactly the same for sustainability. So I think it's really interesting that you've pulled that out, and I think we've got some people in the audience who I'm sure would feel the same thing, dedicated kind of sustainability leads, but recognising that actually it's exactly that, a team effort, and you need to it needs to be living and breathing within an organisation. So you talked about kind of bringing industry segments together, that outdoor live trade show, corporate, etc. So we've got a lot of really great content across the next 2 days. What are a couple of sessions that you would highly recommend people heading to?
That's a really good one. I think...
Putting you on the spot, 'cause
I
we didn't
know.
plan that conversation, but I'm interested to know what you think would be really great for people to see.
There's obviously other ISLA sessions going off, so definitely go and see those. One of the and I know ISLA are involved in this as well. One of the sessions that I think there's a lot to learn from, even if you're not in the trade show market, is the Better Stance framework. And I think what's really interesting there to learn from is their approach to it. Just as a high level, this initiative came out of one company, which was Informa, and it was their initiative, and it was very much branded Informa. But they saw an opportunity to say, this is bigger than us, and what we want to do is now we want to collaborate with our competitors on a better approach, and the more, as a group, we can have a better impact.
Yep.
And this is something that can trickle down. It's really interesting in terms of the institute. It's really interesting in where Informa have brought it to and what it means in terms of trade shows like this. But I think the bigger learning there is just Informa's story on and their approach now, and obviously the support that ISLA are giving them as well with the framework.
So is there a content session on that?
There is.
Fine. Find it somewhere on the agenda, because I'm not going to make him tell you what stage and what time.
It's day 2 tomorrow, main stage. Not quite sure what time. I think it's the morning.
Yeah.
But if you can't make it, all of our content is recorded and available on demand after the event as well.
Brilliant. And so kind of coming back to, you mentioned that I actually have no idea. What's the time?
17
Great,
minutes.
okay, great.
We're fine.
One of the things you mentioned is that there are learnings already from kind of, we're on first morning of the show, so there's, I'm sure, loads and loads that's going to come through from conversations and things that you'll be listening to people feed back to you about. But you've already said there are things that you would do differently and things that you aspire for next year's show. Are you able to share any insights into what they are and why?
Yeah, certainly. I think more initiatives with exhibitors and collaborating with them on what they're doing, not only for themselves, but how they might also be able to support other exhibitors with their approach and stuff. So one of our great partners, Not Your Everyday, I think, again, working with them deeper, we'll be able to maybe make, for some exhibitors, better furniture choices or more sustainable furniture choices there. One thing I really want to tackle for next year, and I don't know whether this is power options for exhibitors on the show floor. At the moment, everything's centrally through ESL, and I believe there's other approaches that could be brought into the event and stuff like that, but I think that's a bigger conversation for me to have with the venue and also with some of the associations that represent those venues and things like that. And I think from our own approach, again, it's re-looking at the materials we're using and cross-checking everything there, what we do after the show with those materials, learning from this show in terms of our recycling approach and things like that. And also communication with attendees around travel. I think that's something we could encourage there, just in terms of choices and things like that, to make less impact when it comes to the show. We have been tracking that this year. We've been asking lots of questions around it. I think that could turn back into our communication as well next year.
Yeah, interesting. I think there's a lot that, I think it's quite, one of the questions that we were going to talk about and can kind of come on to was like, why now? Why launch a show? Why is that important? And I'm going to come back to that. But I think something that you just mentioned there was, here's some changes we want to make in terms of how we operate the show, from things like waste and recycling to power, etc. What's it like? How does it actually feel to sort of put yourself in the spotlight for criticism, in the sense that, you know, it's not perfect, because no show can be perfect. There is no 100% sustainable event. Let's just say, call a spade a spade. That's never going to be how things are. But there will be things to critique, or to that, you know, someone sees one thing that they call out as a really unsustainable practice for whatever reason, and there's quite a I think to why some of the exhibitors have been reluctant or apprehensive to talk about what they're doing for fear of kind of being called out. So has that played in at all? Have you had any anxieties about that?
Absolutely. I mean, I'd be very foolish to sit here and think, no, I'm not worried about it at all. I know definitely with certain members of the team that have more pressure on them from an operational perspective, from other elements like delivering the branding, being responsible to dealing with the venue on certain things and things like that. I think that is there. I think ultimately what that comes down to, though, is an individual's kind of personality and their approach to things like criticism. I've always been very much of the approach that I'm open to criticism. I'll happily challenge that criticism. But I'm also open to changing my opinion on things. And I don't think that we will have got everything as perfect as we possibly can on this first outing of the show. But I'm sure everybody else in the room is also in that same position. I don't see sustainability as a goal. It's a continual journey, right? Will you always be striving to do something different or make a 0.1% improvement in one area, 10% improvement in another area? And that goes the same for Event Tech Live. People often ask me, like, where's technology at? Has it come to an end and stuff like that? And I'm like, no, just like sustainability, it will ever evolve as we evolve as an industry, as our attendees evolve, as their demands evolve, as culture evolves. You know, different generations expect different things and different kind of approaches to things. So for me personally, I've not probably felt as much pressure as other team members. But again, I think that's something you have to be mindful as an organisation or as a leader in your business. Like, how do you lead from the front? How do you reassure them? How do you get buy-in and things like that? So for me, it's not just looking at the data and the figures and kind of making those little things. It's also looking at how you support your entire team and kind of be open to those conversations. Like, if somebody's got an opinion that you can do something different, have that conversation with them. Learn from them.
Get out your box.
Yeah, exactly.
Get your team out of your box.
Yeah.
I think we forget how, I mean, I felt like I'm going to be a self-help guru now, but I think we forget how important it can be to be vulnerable, to kind of share your own challenges and kind of understand, have the space for your team to be vulnerable as well, so you can find solutions to come through that. Because you don't grow, you don't change, you can't progress if you're not taking yourself out of kind of your comfort zone. And it's fine if you just want to stay in your comfort zone. Okay, yeah. But actually everybody knows that when you step outside of it, you get new experiences, new learnings, new joys. Sometimes you get a bit hurt or a bit burned, but you know, you progress onwards. And I think that the point you're saying there, sustainability isn't a goal. It's not a noun, it's a practice. You know, technology describes so many different things that can do so many different things for us, from, you know, whether it is automation, whether it is AI, whether it is, you know, machinery making life easier, all those sorts of things. And so, you know, technology is something that you apply to get an outcome, yeah. And sustainability is a practice that you have to apply to get an outcome. And I think we can often forget that in the bid to kind of describe oneself or describe something as sustainable. One of our values at ISLA is about iteration. So iterative is actually a value of ours, which is we expect progress, not perfection. And as long as you are iterating, as long as you continue to take that step forward and progress, you know, take some progressive steps, that's great, because no one changes overnight.
I agree. I think we've got a question.
Yeah, I've got a few questions,
sure.
if that's
okay.
okay.
We're doing that? We're doing questions. Great, okay.
We have 5 minutes left and 4 questions to answer,
sorry,
so we have about a minute a question.
Yeah.
It's been amazing to get so many questions. So I'll let either of you take these as we kind of go through. We'll take them in the order that they came through. You mentioned Trace. How will carbon counting for in-person live events change the industry for the better?
That's definitely an Anna question.
Yeah, that's a big question. So yeah, Trace is our carbon platform, carbon measurement platform. It's a collaborative platform that helps event professionals measure, report and make decisions about how they are going to deliver their event before you even get on site. It's kind of a pre-activity as well as a post-activity. 5-minute warning. Trace is a data aggregation platform, so we take all of that data, it's all anonymized and aggregated back end, and we're able to identify industry trends, hotspots, impacts. We did this last year, so we released Trace last year in April. We took 8 months of data, analysed that for 128 events across the UK that took place last year. We did a whole load of like data analysis and confidence in the data because it was the first year people doing it. And we released a temperature check report this year in May, which basically was around kind of the state of the UK events industry and some of the trends that we were seeing. So we're over there, you can come and download that, you can get it on the website. But the idea is about being able to understand the impact of the industry at large. Where are the different hotspots for different types of events? An exhibition trade show is going to be very different from an incentive or a conference or an experiential event. And the strategies that one needs to apply to, the sustainability strategies one needs to apply is going to look very different for an exhibition versus an experiential event. Having that data helps us understand how do we interact with those hotspots. An experiential is not going to be the stands and the logistics and the transportation. Experiential is going to be the merchandising and the guest experience and the food waste and those sorts of things. So it's about being able to look at industry impacts at large, to be able to break down into kind of the individual areas and understand how we can provide guidance and direction for different segments of the industry to reduce their impact. That was not 60 seconds, sorry.
No, that wasn't 60 seconds, but it was very informative, so thank you very much. The next question, you'll do very well to squeeze into 60 seconds as well. Do you have any knowledge on what support the government are going to do to provide support for this industry?
I feel like that's another you question rather than me.
Oh gosh, the government is in a bit of a state of chaos at the moment, if we're totally honest. So I'm not sure that they even know what support to offer themselves, let alone an industry that they don't recognise. So there are, as far as I'm aware, you know, the support coming from government is not there. It's not going to be there. We're not really recognised. I think everybody is aware the events industry might fall into hospitality or tourism or kind of different areas, and so we don't have the representation that we need. If you are interested in that, the Business of Events is an initiative that is looking at creating a policy agenda to take to government. You can absolutely find out more. You Google UK Policy Forum or the Business of Events. It's a great initiative. If that is a really important subject to you, which it should be for most of us in the industry, please do visit there, get involved with that, and help shape that policy agenda to take to government so that we get the recognition that we need and hopefully the future support.
Yeah, I think with government it's yo-yo, you're on your own. The next question, hopefully a little bit more straightforward to answer. Are you calculating the carbon footprint of this event, and how will it be mitigated or offset if you are?
We are working with ISLA and with Trace, so that's the partnership that we've got with the... are you an association?
Industry body.
Industry body, sorry, yeah. We see them as a really key part of that. The mitigation has yet to be decided on our part, in all honesty.
Cool, lovely. And the final question, which should about bring us to time, and it's about the shows in general. Are you getting more engagement every year at ETL and now obviously ESL? Are there more people coming, and do you get more exhibitors and partners every year?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the ways that we've grown the Event Tech Live brand, rather than just focus on a larger show, is to introduce new features which brings buyers into that show, but also to take that brand to other locations to serve that market. So earlier this year with Event Tech Live, we delivered our first event in the North America region in Las Vegas. And I hope that we might be able to do something similar with Event Sustainability Live and that brand, because as we see it, and this was our approach, you know, for us, a more sustainable way to deliver these two shows was to be co-located. We've been able to use a lot of the same supply chain. We've had minimal uplift in logistics and things like that. And then I think the benefit to, obviously, companies involved, whether that's exhibitors, sponsors, partners, on both sides is, you know, although somebody might come with an interest in technology, that doesn't mean they've not involved in some shape or form in what the company is doing from a sustainability perspective, and vice versa. So in terms of uplift for us, in terms of show numbers, we hope that will translate to the participants. And for ESL as well, it also already gives them an established body of attendees for us to attract over to this show.
Just because we're going to wrap, I know that as a closing sentiment, something that Adam just said, it's not about growing the size, it's about growing engagement. And I think there is nothing more sustainable than that mindset, which is engagement over scale. Yeah, I love that. It's great.
You are often judged as a show organiser, any event organiser, on what are the headline numbers. And unfortunately, a lot of companies still make their decisions on which events to invest on based on that headline number, rather than being a little bit more analytical on what that number actually means in terms of for them as an individual company and stuff.
Buckets of integrity, like I said. There we go.
Perfect. That's all the questions, so I'll leave you to your closing remarks, and I think we're about done.
There you go.
Thank you very much. I hope you have enjoyed our little conversation. I feel like we could just go on and on and on. We should probably structure this slightly. Thank you very much for agreeing to be grilled by me. Thanks for launching the show. He's around the next 2 days. We're over there on the ISLA Island if you want to come find out more about what we're doing. And yeah, thanks so much for joining the session this morning.